Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm the Mellow Mama, and today I'll be talking all about the ego and what you might think it is, what it really is, and how to silence it. If you're new here, what's up? I'm Kate. I talk all things conscious living and conscious, respectful parenting with the help of lots of great books, resources, and of course my own personal experience as a mom. Today I'm going to dive into the subject matter, although it be uncomfortable, because it plays such a huge role in who we are as people, in every relationship that we have, especially the relationship that we have with ourselves, but especially as parents. Today I'm going to be referring mostly to the work of the amazing Eckhart Tolle, one of my favorite authors of all time. In fact, this book that I'll be referring to a lot today, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, is the #1 book recommendation that I have for all people. Typically people associate me with Rosalind Ross's book, A Theory of Objectivist Parenting, but I think that this book pairs so nicely with all of the child rearing literature that I share and refer to, and it will help you on a much, much deeper level to understand yourself, your relationships, maybe the patterns that you have in relationships, and also just the patterns that you have in the way that you think and react to things, which is obviously a big deal when it comes to being a parent and functioning highly as a parent, with your children and for your children and for yourself. All that being said, let's go ahead and get into the discussion. So I'm going to start with a basic definition of ego. The identity part of self. Anything that comes after I, the storyteller part of the mind that judges and defines all life experiences in order to feel security and safety. And that is the holistic psychologist on Instagram's definition of the ego, but I really, really liked it because it was very cut and dry and to the point. And I'm going to kind of reread that to you, but with some clarification. So the identity part of self. So the ego, I used to associate it with meathead, bodybuilder guys, narcissistic people, right? We would label them as that, people that are like always checking themselves out in the mirror, think they look amazing. Maybe women that would be classified or labeled as conceited. Even that great Beyonce song, I Got a Big Ego, right? I thought of that song as her way of saying I'm the it, like I'm amazing and nobody can touch me. That's how I perceived ego. Apparently that's also how Beyonce perceived ego, but that's absolutely not what it is. It's actually what was being clarified here, the identity part of self. So anything that you identify as, and all of the thoughts that come around when that identity is being threatened. So there's the storyteller part of the mind that judges and defines all life experiences in order to feel security and safety. What she means by that is, how are we protecting that identity? Is that identity secure and safe? And you might be like, what the heck are you talking about, Kate? But we all identify as something, and a very, very good example that I think we can use on this particular platform, the Mellow Mama channel, is the identity of being a good mom or a good spouse, because a lot of you are parents or expecting mothers and fathers. I think I've gotten some more dads watching. Hey dads. So this identity that, I'm a good mom, I'm a great mom, can be really harmful to us actually just living out a more peaceful, clear existence, an empathetic existence where, we do work and operate without judgment and in a space of unconditional love for ourselves and our children, because that identity is threatened all the time. Things happen on a daily basis that threaten the safety and security of this identity as good mom, right? Especially if you're taking the advice that I share on my channel, to raise your children in a non-mainstream way with a different frame of mind. You're definitely being threatened all the time, right? Your ego is probably under severe threat on a daily basis, whether it be from your in-laws that think, what is she doing? She has no idea how to be a good mom. She has no idea what she's doing. That is not how I would parent my child. That's not how I raised my kids, right? That probably sounds familiar to a lot of you, and that probably does make you feel offended, maybe appalled, maybe fed up, maybe angry, maybe frustrated, a whole host of tense, uncomfortable feelings. But that's probably the root one there, discomfort. When our ego arises, it's typically because our identity is being threatened. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my little tips on how to quiet the ego. With this definition in mind, now that there's some more clarity for you guys watching that are unfamiliar with this concept. But I do want to also say that the idea that you can eliminate your ego and never be affected by your life experiences, interactions, whatsoever is false. The ego is always going to be a part of you. However, we can do the work to become more aware of it, to become more mindful of it, and also do a better job in turn of responding in a healthy way when it is triggered. And that is how we live a more peaceful, more conscious lifestyle. And ultimately, in my opinion, and the reason that I'm sharing this on my channel, an amazing way to become more confident as a parent and as a person. So let's go into step one of how to quiet the ego, and that is awareness. I love that Eckhart Tolle states, you are not the thinker, but the one aware of it. That's very deep. Let it sink in for a second. You're not your thoughts, because you're aware of your thoughts. You can hear them, you can recognize them, right? Start to kind of have an out-of-body experience, although it sounds funny. This out-of-body experience where you're sort of looking down on yourself throughout the day in your interactions with yourself, with your children, with other people, maybe coworkers, friends, a spouse, a loved one, whoever it is. Start to take mental notes of how you talk to people, how you think about other people, how you talk to yourself, how you think about yourself, how you view yourself. What things are you saying? What comments are you making? Even about your child, about your own parents. If you're, you have your mom in your life or your dad in your life or, whoever it is, what comments are you making? Are they positive? Are they negative? Are they judgmental? Are they passive? Are they just, simple remarks, maybe like, oh, I love her hair today, right? Just become more aware of your thoughts, and that's the first step. Second part of that is becoming aware of the feelings associated with those thoughts, because all thoughts make us sort of feel a certain way, good, bad, maybe like indifferent, whatever, but start bringing awareness to that. So if you're starting to notice something about another person or about yourself, how does it make you feel? What do you feel and why? And start to just make that a practice, a general habit for yourself to become more mindful of the thoughts that you're thinking instead of just letting them run rampant, because that is living an unconscious existence where we're being run by the thinker and not by, us. We're not in conscious control of ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, and of course, most importantly, our reactions and our responses to our daily experience. Once you've started to bring awareness to your thoughts and your feelings, you'll notice, and this is number 2, triggers. Things that actually kind of arouse the ego, get the ego to come up and say, hey, I'm here to party. And it's typically in times where you feel, again, that your identity is being threatened. And on the surface, it doesn't seem like that, right? A good example, again, is the good mom thing, right? So you get, let's say you're letting your child participate in some risky play, like Donovan climbs up really, really high, which is unusual for a 2-year-old. Most people are like, oh, dear God, like, just get your kid, like, have your child under control, come on. Or Donovan's walking around a restaurant, and I'm watching him, or walking around somewhere and I'm not like helicoptering him. It makes people so uncomfortable, right? Which means they it's such a deep conversation, but I'm not going to go on a tangent. So they're looking at me with what I would refer to as like a judgmental, mom-shaming glare. Like, wow, like somebody is so inattentive. Like somebody does not know how to raise kids. And I'm sure you guys have all gotten that in some form or another. Again, especially if you're practicing respectful child rearing. And that could trigger my ego, for sure. And I've noticed that it does. It just naturally does because I identify with being a good mom. So it's how we respond to our ego being triggered, and that's for later on in this video. But first we have to identify, oh, that's a trigger for me. And typically when you have feelings of discomfort, of unrest, so being offended, getting upset, angry, feeling some sort of confusion, or just like you're misunderstood, those are all big red flags that your ego is here to party. He's there, hello, big bold letters, ego is here, okay? And that is key. This is the key part to healing, to knowing the ego. In order to quiet the ego, you have to recognize when it's even around. Even, again, the most enlightened people have ego. It comes up all the time. It comes up all the time for me, even though I've been doing this work for a long time. The difference between an enlightened person, I suppose, in this case, is that they're aware of it. And they're aware of how they respond when he comes around. I'm talking like it's a mean cousin or something. Versus just completely overtaken by the ego and responding in ways that are just completely inappropriate. Typically, when somebody is completely unaware of their ego, it can lead to some pretty rough stuff. Yelling, swearing at somebody, saying something you just really don't mean, but it's protecting you. And it's protecting your identity, it's making you feel more validated. Your ego is like, yes, that's right, I'm here, right? And it could lead to like slamming doors or breaking things, maybe being physically violent in some severe cases. But our ego can really wreak havoc on our lives if we are not aware of it, especially as parents, because our ego is probably more activated because being a parent is hard work. It is really hard to raise another person, especially because our triggers usually lie in the pain of our inner child. They're rooted from our childhood, so we're reminded constantly while raising a child of our own deep-rooted insecurities, our deep-rooted feelings of not being worthy of love, connection, of being seen, heard, understood, you name it. And again, it's very deep, but I'm going to go into that right now. Number 3 is to go deeper. Instead of just saying, well, I'm angry because they said that they agree with this legislation, some sort of political argument, right? A lot of people get very into their ego about politics because they identify, I am a Democrat. I'm always pounding my chest way too hard. I am a Republican, whatever. But they're not. They just identify that as good or bad. And they want to be good. They want to be right in order to be what? Loved, heard, respected, understood, important, valued, in order to get that deep human connection that we all desperately yearn for. On the surface, it doesn't look like that. And you might even be watching and be like, no, I'm mad about the political disagreement. No, I'm actually mad about that. Ask yourself, am I? Am I really? Or do I just want to be the good guy? Do I want to be recognized as good? Do I, even to yourself, not from other people, are you trying to validate yourself that you're good, that you make wise choices, that you are right? It's very common. It's nothing to be ashamed of. We all do it. We all do it. But I want you to go deeper. Go beneath the surface level and say, why is this making me have this big response? Why am I having this big reaction? What part of my identity is being threatened here? What am I so insecure about? And where is that insecurity coming from? I always refer back to the anger iceberg. Anger is a secondary emotion, not a primary emotion where, we feel that and that's what we're feeling. It happens as a counterpart to what we're really feeling. Anger is sort of like a disguise. It's the ego in disguise. Oh, I'm just angry about that. I'm really worked up. Like, she really got under my skin. What's really happening here is what's beneath the surface. And I always show this anger iceberg, and I'll put it here again. And I love sharing it because it is something that we need to be reminded of all the time, especially when dealing with our children's big heightened emotions. What's on the surface level, what you can see, is actually all that's under the water in terms of the iceberg. 90% of the iceberg is submerged, right? Or some huge part of it. And what's under here is what's really going on. Feelings of insecurity, of like, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not good enough, I'm not valued here, I'm not worth being seen, understood, heard. Maybe just general tension, confusion, a lack of understanding. All of those things are what equate to angry. Angry is just the ego trying to cover up the real root issue here, and that is, again, deep insecurity and a threat to whatever we identify as. Now, what to do with that is the beautiful question that we can start to ask. You can see that there's a great progression here happening. We're stepping into a higher consciousness. It is not easy work. Recognizing those deep-rooted insecurities is hard work. Recognizing that we feel threatened or unsafe in our identity, we feel like we're going to be exposed, maybe, is hard work. Next step to what to do with that awareness. Okay, like I recognize thoughts, my feelings, what I think and why, what I feel and why. I definitely recognize what makes me feel triggered, what identity I'm mostly trying to protect all of the time, and also what insecurities lie beneath that identity. Now we have to find the origin of that identity. Who told you who you're supposed to be good or bad? Probably have a guess. It's your parents. Number 4 is to heal your inner child, or to at least recognize the wounds from your childhood. Recognize your inner child in this sort of deep-rooted insecurity, this deep sense of who am I and who am I trying to protect? What identity am I trying to keep safe here? Behaviorism is the root of all of this, in my opinion. This concept of conditional love that we offer to children in mainstream child rearing and mainstream education. You are a good boy or girl, or you are a bad boy or girl. And when you are bad, you are not worthy of love. You are worthy of shame and guilt. You are bad. Go feel bad over there. You're good. Oh my gosh, I love you. Oh, I'm so proud of you. And this inevitably leads to a whole slew of very, very big issues without us even recognizing it. And what's funny is that this concept of good boy or bad boy or good girl, bad girl never goes away, which is why we have to work so hard to protect this sort of identity that we've created and cultivated for ourselves, but also that's been cultivated for us by the adults in our lives from infancy. No matter what it was as a child and young person that you were valued for, the point is that your value was conditional to you performing for the people in your lives, usually the adult in your life. There are many problems with that, and I talk about that all the time because it's the main thing that I want to eliminate from child rearing and the way that we view the parent-child relationship. However, the main issue when we talk about ego here is that our identity is completely derived from our inner child and from this need to please other people in our life, this need to perform, this need to live up to whatever expectation has been designed for us. And often, again, that has been placed in our life from the time we're very, very little, and we're being labeled as good and bad. I mean, geez, the terrible twos expression, at your second year of life, you're already being labeled as bad when you have a hard time processing life and a hard time understanding boundaries and limits and just a general adjustment to being human and to experiencing life, right? We're labeled as bad from 2. Even actually, I was at a story time yesterday and the mom was telling this baby that could not have been older than 6 months old that she had such an attitude problem. And then when she began to cry, she said, "Oh, that is so fake. Stop it." And the point of me sharing that is, again, that from such an early time in our lives, the love that we receive from our parents and all the adults around us is conditional to our behavior and to us aligning with them and their ego. As deep as the conversation can get, the main reason for that is that our own parents are so deeply insecure because of the same exact pattern. They are living through the exact same inner child trauma that we are. And the saddest part is that, we could repeat the exact same cycle if we don't adjust our style of interacting with our children. We could inflict the exact same sort of pain, the exact same lack of self-worth, identity, and understanding that we are all worthy of unconditional love on our own children if we're not careful, and if we are too deep in our ego to recognize our triggers, to recognize what insecurities we have and what identity we're trying to maintain. That is not even most of the time self-derived. Most of the time, again, this identity that we are trying to upkeep with such passion and vigor and whatever force, I feel like I see people getting so worked up when their ego is triggered, and most of the time it's to defend this sense of self that our parents created for us, not even us. Maybe we're afraid that, again, like without this identity, we won't know who we're supposed to be because we've been doing this role for so long. And again, it might be a subject for another time, but that's the general gist of this section of quieting the ego, understanding your inner child, working on processing what was my childhood experience, what was the identity painted for me, and how have I been meeting that expectation? Not meeting that expectation, how do I feel? When other people imply that I'm not meeting that expectation or living up to that identity, how do I feel? Is my ego present? Does it arise? Do I feel threatened, insecure, unsafe in my identity? This, my friends, is the beautiful part of all of this. Once we've gotten to that deep, meaningful conversation with ourselves, we can actually start to heal. We can actually start to recover and get to this understanding that, yes, we are worth unconditional love. Our good days, our bad days, our good girl days, and maybe on days when we don't live up to the expectation of this perfect cookie cutter person that we're supposed to be in order to be loved and understood and heard and seen. The healing can only occur when we bring awareness to all of the things that I just mentioned. And then it actually, for me, has become sort of a game. I love, again, Eckhart Tolle does such a beautiful job of keeping this conversation lighthearted and tender, because after all, it is human, this discussion. It's something that we all experience. It's not like, oh, one person has their ego inflamed. All of us can laugh at the ego and laugh at this experience because it can change. We can quiet the ego. We can finally grasp the concept that it's all good. We can be whoever we want to be. Obviously there are limits and boundaries, and people will be like, but you can't go killing people. You know what I mean? We can all be ourselves, our true intrinsic self, and still be worthy of love, even if that doesn't match up with some sort of identity or role that you're playing. People can also maybe interpret you or judge you or criticize you, and you be unaffected because you know yourself. Maybe you do match up with some sort of identity. I am super mellow. But if somebody looks at me one day and says, you're not mellow, you're not chill, you're not relaxed person, you're super this, I don't have to be affected by that. My ego does not have to come up and respond to that in some sort of aggressive, yes I am way, right? It doesn't have to be affected because I know myself. And that's through so much healing, so much inner work, so much introspection, and so much reading, honestly. Now, all of that being said, I want you to just imagine, again, like in the beginning, coming above yourself in these times when you're triggered, when somebody does say something and you're like, that rubbed me the wrong way, again, have that outer body experience like you did in the beginning, where you start to observe your thoughts and feelings and your responses to things. And now, in this case, you're observing your ego at work. And be like, wow, interesting that I responded that way. Or, interesting, okay, my ego is out to play right now. Interesting. Okay, where is that coming from? Why is that happening? And what is true about this circumstance? And what really matters in this circumstance? Does that opinion matter? No, usually no. And you could see easily how that would lead to so much inner and outer peace. And in general, just so much more clarity and understanding your relationship with your parents, and understanding the relationship with yourself, your spouse, and your children. And in general, you know, just so much evolution in so many other areas of your life. Hey, bud. Hey, sweetie pie. Lastly, it's going to allow us to be reminded all the time that what we all need as a human race is more empathy, more connection, more understanding, and more unconditional love. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If it was helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with people, tell people to watch my channel, tell people to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already and you like this content, please do that. Hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Instagram for similar content and more, you know, real-time interaction with me and my son Donovan. And I guess I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you. Bye. Oh, wait. Also, this is the book that I'm referring to all the time, Eckhart Tolle's book. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Eckhart Tolle. Such a funny dude. But yeah, check out this book ASAP. And if you're not into reading, listen to it on Audible, or check out Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul podcast, where she goes chapter by chapter with Eckhart Tolle, and it's really sweet to hear them talk and kind of have a nice, cool back and forth about the work there. So yeah, thanks guys. See you later.